He's a tough street-fighting lawyer with the highest ratings for honesty and integrity. He's here to answer your legal questions and get you the help you need. You're listening to the Legal Lowdown with your lawyer, Joe Ingram of Joe Ingram Law. Joe Ingram has more than 20 years' experience fighting for his clients here in the state of Alabama. Joe's focus is criminal defense and family law. You don't have to face your legal issue alone. You've got Joe Ingram on your side. In case of sensitive legal matters, you can always reach out directly to Joe at joeingramlaw.com and arrange for a private consultation. And now, Alabama's defender of the defenseless, protector of the people, and all-around good guy, Joe Ingram.
All right. You're listening to Legal Lowdown with Joe Ingram, your Alabama lawyer on WERC here in Birmingham, WBHP up in Huntsville, and WRTR in Tuscaloosa. We are glad to be back after being off last week for the holiday. We're going to talk about a lot of good information today. We're going to talk about how all the drive-by media on the left, all the naysayers didn't want you to celebrate the holiday. Got bad news for you. I was out and about, saw patriotism everywhere. So do not let them fool you that people are not patriots in this country. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk a little bit about some divorce information that I studied over the last 10 days. We're going to talk about some national and state legal news. And political news, some Supreme Court decisions that came out, and that's what we're going to cover today. Always check out my podcast on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and yes, you can watch us now on my YouTube channel, joeingramlaw.com. Remember, if you have a case, better call Joe. If you have a case, better call Joe. If you're listening to our show, please download it, share it with your friends and family, even your enemies. Yes, your enemies. Might make you to be friends if you share the show with each other, to tune in as well. As always, we want to thank our sponsors for our show. Flat Fee Real Estate of Birmingham. Flat Fee Real Estate is a full-service real estate brokerage that can significantly reduce the amount you pay to sell your home. No high commission fees here. Their brokerage was established right here in Birmingham over 10 years ago, and they remain locally owned and operated here. You will find agents with over 50 years of combined experience and excellent performance. Whether listing or buying with them, they're with you every step of the way, so you will feel confident you've made the right decision when it comes time to selling your home. Give them a call today, Flat Fee Real Estate of Birmingham. Our other sponsor of our show, and we're so proud to have them as well, is Shelby Fence Company. Shelby Fence Company. Over 30 years of expert fence installation and repair across the Birmingham metro area. You can call them at 205-664-1551, or you can check them out at shelbyfencecompany.com, shelbyfencecompany.com. And you can see our sponsors during the news and weather break. We have commercials for them as well. Okay. What are we going to talk about first today? Well, we're going to talk about some information that I've been working on for my divorce clients. And we've been talking about this for a couple weeks, but all of this is really good information. Before we get to that, I just want to remind you, my office represents people from Huntsville, Birmingham, Montgomery, Mobile, and the Tuscaloosa area. If you have a case, all you got to do is call my office, 205-825-5297, 205-825-97. Speak with an intake specialist. They'll get you in for a consultation. Joe Ingram Law is all you need to know. Google Joe Ingram Law is all you need to know for legal representation in the state of Alabama. Okay, So some content we're going to talk about today are related to being a better person when you come out of a divorce, how you heal from a divorce, how you should change when you come out of that divorce or when you overcome that criminal case that you're facing. And so I was reading some content the last week while I was away related to self-respect. And this is really important. This doesn't really apply necessarily just to a divorce. This applies both to people that come out of divorce, people that come out of a criminal case, or just in general in being better people that we try to be every day. Self-respect. When you finally learn to choose yourself, you realize that not every door deserves your knock. You don't have to open the door for everybody. Not every person deserves your presence. Self-respect is the quiet decision to walk away from who drains you. Just because somebody wants to be in your life, don't let them in your life. Just because they ring your phone, you don't have to answer. Just because they text you, you don't have to respond to that text. Let them go. And people that make you feel bad, stay away from them. Even when your heart still feels attached, and this is tough for females, it's understanding that your time, your energy, and your love are valuable, and they should be given where they are returned with honesty and care. You return what you get. If you don't get what you want from your significant other or your spouse, then you're going to give what you get. So invest in people that invest in you. I guess that's the message. Sometimes you will miss people who were not good for you, but missing them does not mean you should go back simply because you're human. You're going to miss that person. You're going to miss them at first after the divorce is done. You may want to pick up that phone and call them and talk to them. No. After you get a divorce, you have to make a clean break for yourself. Cut them off. Have no conversation with them about anything. You walked away from the marriage. Why would you be contacting them anymore? Stand firm in your worth even on those days it feels heavy, because self-respect is not about being unfeeling. It's about loving yourself enough to no longer accept what hurts you. Self-respect. Know your worth. Know your value. Know those that want to be in your world, in your orbit, people that you're going to associate with. If you have those relationships where they're always one-sided, guess what? Cut them off. If you're always making contact with the person, cut them off. If you ended the marriage, there's no reason to have contact with them after the divorce. Even if they just want to text you and say, hey, can we still have dinner once a week or have dinner once a month? No, that's why we got a divorce. You didn't want to stay married to me. Cut them off. And so, working with clients, going through a divorce, you have to decide how you want to control your thoughts. And there are a number of these that I read out of this book over the last 10 days that I'd like to share with you. First, do not believe every thought your mind produces. Your mind's going to produce thousands of thoughts daily, repetitive, negative, or unnecessary. You have to learn to question them instead of just accepting every thought that you have. Is this positive? Is this negative? Is this good? Is this bad? Is this real? Or is this my mind playing tricks on me? Then, accept them whether or not they're true. Second, name what you're feeling Instead of just saying, I feel bad today, be specific. Say something like, I feel anxious. I feel overwhelmed. I feel insecure. I don't feel safe. I don't feel loved. Learning to name what you're feeling. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay to have a feeling. It's okay to say, I'm anxious about seeing my ex-spouse at my daughter's graduation. Okay. We've acknowledged the feeling. But then what do we do with that after we've acknowledged the feeling? What do we do next? Shift your reaction to an observation. Watch your thoughts like a movie instead of reacting instantly. What this does is create a distance, a control. And I love this. You are the observer. You are not the storm. How many times have I said about being in the eye of a storm when you're going through a divorce or you're in the middle of a criminal case? Instead of being in the center of the storm, be an observer from the outside. Now, this is hard, okay? This is really hard, but you can do this if you'll listen to me. Be an observer watching the storm. Next, replace, don't suppress. You can't just stop a thought and replace it with a better one. An example of this might be, I don't want to deal with this today, I'll deal with it tomorrow. You can't put your head in the sand and say, I'm having a bad day, I don't want to deal with this. All you're doing is suppressing the inevitable. Deal with it. You're strong. You're going to get through this. You can deal with it. Okay? So now let's talk about limiting mental triggers. What you consume shapes how you think. Reduce negative social media, toxic conversations, toxic people, or news. If you sit and scroll on Instagram at night, and whatever your interests are is all whatever Instagram is going to feed you. My interests are different than yours. So every Instagram scroll I get is either going to be about running or self-help or motivation or some guru or scaling a business or whatever. Whatever Instagram feeds into their algorithm that you feed it is what you're going to internalize. Okay? So maybe just put the phone down and don't scroll so much. So your feed becomes what your mind is. It's a fact. Stop scrolling. Next, write it out. Sometimes journaling and writing out your thoughts clears your mind. Once it's on paper, we've identified it, you can stop spinning your wheels in your mind, and your mind can stop racing about whatever the thoughts are that you're having. Next, take control of your body. Your body and your thoughts will follow your state of mind. If you move your body, breathe, deeply stretch, the body will follow your mind. It happens. And then you have to focus on what you can control. You have to focus on what you can control. More often than not, most people stress over things outside of your control. Anytime you are in litigation, you have the fear of the unknown or the fear of the worst case scenario. That's why you hire a professional, is that you want them to deal with the problem and the stress. Hopefully you hire a good lawyer to represent you so you don't have to be upset every day. Just control what you can control at the moment in time and hope you hired good representation to represent you in the middle of your storm. You have to control what you can control. I've talked about this a lot. Fear of the unknown and fate of the unknown are both four-letter words. Fear and fate go together. So, when I work with clients that have gone through a very ugly divorce, self-respect is about choosing who needs to be in your life, who doesn't need to be in your life, and what the next chapter of your life is going to look like just because you have feelings for that person or that spouse. It's okay to move on so that you can be the better version of yourself in the future. That's good stuff. All right. Some other information I was reading over the last week. And hopefully this will help you because I deal with this all the time with people going through a divorce. And by the way, I have done probably 10 gray divorces this year. Gray divorce. Remember us talking about that? Those are people where the children have gotten out of high school. Gray divorces. I actually did a divorce this last week for a couple in their 80s. And I asked my client, I said, do you really want to do this? She said, Joe, I don't have a choice. My spouse has dementia. He tried to burn the house down with me in it. Not only am I getting a divorce, we got to have him committed for the sake of the community and the safety of me. It was sad. Gray divorces. So here's something to think about in life. Marriage is hard. Divorce is hard. Choose your hard. Obesity is hard. Fit is hard. Choose your hard. Debt is hard. Being financially dependent. Disciplined is hard. Choose your hard. Starting a business is hard. Working a 9-to-5 job that you hate is hard. Choose your hard. Life is never going to be easy, but you would get to choose what your hard is. Choose wisely. Isn't that great? In life, you get choices. You can either be married, try to make the marriage work, get a divorce. Pick your choice. You can either be obese and not take care of your physical health, or you can exercise. Choose your hard. You can go do that job that you hate, or you can go try to start a business. Choose your hard. In life, all these are your independent decisions. So at the end of your life, don't sit back and tell me, well, Joe, I had to do this, and Joe, I had to do that. No, those were your choices. You made those choices. Choose wisely, my friends. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about the news of the week. The Charlie Cook killer, what's his name? Tyler Robinson's preliminary hearing. News of the week. First of all, why is it taking almost a year to have a preliminary hearing in a criminal case? A preliminary hearing is not a trial. It is here to establish probable cause. Probable cause is not reasonable doubt. Probable cause is it more likely than not that Joe may have committed a crime? Not Joe did it. Is it likely Joe did it? It's taken us almost a year to have a prelim that's lasted a week. You don't see that anywhere else. Anyway, so we're having the prelim this week. And it's turned into a media circus on TV. I don't know Utah law, so there's that. But anywhere else I've ever been, and I've practiced law in almost every county in the state of Alabama, the burden of proof is low at a probable cause hearing than at a jury trial. And by the way, tell me why the Utah prosecutors, they didn't have to have a preliminary hearing. They could have just gone to the grand jury and got an indictment and returned an indictment against the guy. Why did they have to have this show, dog and pony show, a preliminary hearing? I don't know. But we're watching it. So they've wasted a year that they've already could have gone to the grand jury and indicted Tyler Robinson. This case bothers me because either the judge is weak or the judge is enjoy the media coverage, sort of like Judge Ito in the O.J. Simpson case. He got run over by the defense lawyers that were high-profile defense lawyers. I'm not sure what is going on out there. I don't. And the DA could just go indict him. It's so confusing to me. I don't get it. And by the way, just so you know, I went and looked up some figures the other day. I thought, what is this costing for this whole thing? Do you know that Tyler Robinson's defense team has already billed the state of Utah $349,000? And we are at a preliminary hearing? Do you know that they're going to ask the state of Utah legislator, honest to goodness, they're going to ask for $2 million next year for his defense trial? $2 million? Look, even in the state of Alabama, a capital murder case costs a lot. In fact, there is a no cap on a defense if the state has to pay for somebody charged with the ultimate crime of capital murder. I get that. But $349,000, and we hadn't even had a prelim finished, that just seems a little bit absurd to me. Okay, so the Supreme Court ended the session, and a couple of cases we need to cover just to finish up. The Supreme Court ruled for presidential authority. In a 6-3 decision, Trump versus Slaughter, the president now has the power to fire independent agency heads at will, striking down a case that's almost 100 years old. The Supreme Court has handed Trump a big victory over the deep state, or what we call the administrative state heads that sit up there that are appointed for life and don't answer to anybody. And I think this week he actually fired 3 more people, because he found out he could do it now. It overturns a case from 1935, almost 100 years old. He fired the head of the, it was either the FTC or the FCC, I can't remember which he got rid of. But the Supreme Court says he can do it now. He has the authority to do that, even though he can't get rid of a Federal Reserve chairman. So that was a win for President Trump from the Supreme Court. Judge Roberts wrote the opinion, so that was a good case for him. The next case I want to talk about that came off the Supreme Court that was a biggie, that really I got right, but I'm upset about. Birthright citizenship. Supreme Court said, nope, if you're born here, you're a citizen. The court upheld the case under the 14th Amendment. They said that it applies regardless of a parent's legal status, meaning you can fly in here, be pregnant, give birth, child's an American citizen. First, let me say that Justice Clarence Thomas is a wonderfully written, he wrote a 91-page opinion. We're going to discuss it after we come back from News and Weather. Justice Thomas was great. He was on a podcast this week. We'll be back after News and Weather in just a second.
You're listening to The Legal Lowdown with your lawyer, Joe Ingram. If you need confidential legal help off air, reach out to Joe at joeingramlaw.com. Stay tuned for more. Joe will be right back after this break for News and Weather. You're listening to The Legal Lowdown with Joe Ingram. Joe is a 20-year veteran of the Alabama courts specializing in criminal defense and family law. If you need a private legal consultation, email Joe at joeingramlaw.com. And now, welcome back to The Legal Lowdown with Joe Ingram.
All right, you're listening to the second segment of Legal Lowdown with Joe Ingram, your Alabama lawyer on WERC in Birmingham, WBHP up in Huntsville, and WRTR in Tuscaloosa. Okay, before we went to break, we were talking about the Supreme Court decision that came down over a week ago about birthright citizenship. Justice Clarence Thomas, love the man, wrote a 91-page dissent. He gets it better than anybody. Justice Thomas, in his opinion, burned down the House, stating that the majority of repurposing the 14th Amendment to protect its own set of preferred rights that the Reconstruction Congress never contemplated and that cannot find support in its context. Quote, today, the court does so again by recognizing a constitutional right to citizenship for the children of all foreign birth tourists and illegal aliens, end of quote. In his opinion, Justice Thomas argued that the 14th Amendment's citizenship clause does not automatically grant citizenship to everyone born on the U.S. soil. Neil Gorsuch and joined in the opinion. A person's parents to be permanently domiciled in the U.S. without allegiance to a foreign power. Thomas gets this. He argues in the case the meaning of jurisdiction. He contended that the phrase "not subject to any foreign power" inherently excludes the children of foreign temporary visitors and those without a permanent residence in the country. From a historical perspective, Thomas argued that the 14th Amendment was designed specifically to overturn Dred Scott's decision to secure citizenship for freed enslaved people. He claimed the original drafters never intended for the clause to be extended broadly for the children of individuals who are not permanently tied to this nation. He goes on to talk about the devaluating of citizenship, what it means. Because citizenship clause was a minority view, the Supreme Court struck down the former Trump administration's executive order restrictions, affirming that children born to undocumented or temporary immigrant parents are U.S. citizens at birth. So, let me explain something just a second. Birthright citizenship that was done under the 14th Amendment was done for a reason and time, not for eternity. It wasn't set up that way. But it's being used in a way to circumvent its original intent, and he gets it. In fact, on July the 1st, Judge Thomas gave an interview somewhere, and he talked in depth about his opinion. Thomas is brilliant. They talk about how he never asked a question for 10 or 20 or 30 years on the bench. He didn't need to ask questions of people that were before the court. He was smarter than them. He got it all. So, anyway, that's one decision. The transgender opinion for transgender athletes was a 6-3 decision. Case is West Virginia versus BPJ. Allows states to ban transgender women from participating in women's sports teams under Title IX. Believe it or not, even after this decision came out from the Supreme Court, the governor of California, Newsom, still said that under state law they were going to use transgender for sports. That's unbelievable. So we have the Supreme Court of the land. You take an oath to follow the laws of the Supreme Court. It's the final say. And then you tell me you're not going to follow the law because you don't like it, because it doesn't help you to get votes. That's what you're telling me. Okay. And then there was a case that came out about campaign finance and voting, about the removal of coordinated campaign spending, and affirmed that states can count late affirm mail-in ballots if they are postmarked by Election Day. This is the case that Judge Amy Barrett authored and has been burned at the stake for. She turned out to be judge like Justice Roberts. She is not what we thought we were getting. She said, hey, if votes come in 2 weeks late and they're postmarked, they count. That's what the Dems do. They say, how many votes do we need? How many are we short? Hang on, we'll go get some. It's called ballot harvesting. We're going to go get some more votes. Just hang on. We're going to get them there, folks. We're going to get them. That's what they do. Go dig up dead folks, or go get more people that have gym cards and say, hey, would you like to vote in Michigan? Oh, my goodness. In other news over the last week or so, Senator John Fetterman, he has turned out to be very moderate Democrat. In fact, some people on the right are trying to court him to join the Republican Party. He was on a podcast. He says that he's not going to join the party of the Republicans, but he's very moderate in how he sees things. The Dems are against him right now. Fetterman has come out and jumped all over the Dems for their polarizing issues, race to the bottom, however you want to categorize it. We had the issue this week of the gentleman running for Senate up in Maine. What's his name? Graham Plantner. They finally threw him over the edge, said because all of the issues dealing with him that he's got to go. Oh, and by the way, guess how much the Dems spent for Graham Plantner? And he's gone. $16 million. But they threw him overboard, just like Joe Biden. If the Democrats feel like they can't get you across the line, they'll throw you over the boat. So they threw away Graham Plantner this last week. But Fetterman has turned out to be very, very moderate in his views, and he's pretty mainstream, actually. He's almost like the senator from West Virginia that hired Joe Manchin. Was that his name, Joe Manchin? Yes. He was very moderate. He was mainstream. So I'm becoming a big fan of John Fetterman, believe it or not. For the guy that had a stroke that I thought wasn't going to make it, he has actually come a really long way and is doing a very good job in his position. And if the poll numbers turn out right, he may become a Republican. At one time, Pennsylvania did have a Republican senator, Tom Ridge, back before 9/11, and he was the first director of DNI. Tom Ridge was a Pennsylvania senator. So it is possible if the votes change there. So it can happen. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about we just celebrated the 250th anniversary of this great country. I saw some wonderful people. I saw some great things over the last 10 days. I have faith in the people of this country in the Deep South. I am not concerned about us here. States like New York, Washington, Virginia, Maine, and Minnesota, Michigan, These are the people that have lost their minds. These are people that have these pockets of Muslims. They will not assimilate. They have come here to conquer our land and to take it over. So I want to talk about our buddy for just a minute, Comrade Mandani up in New York. He had a speech on July the 3rd. He held a news conference sitting behind the desk of George Washington. Yes, George Washington, the founding father of our country. Oh, my goodness. And he had 10 people beside him with little flags that must have been naturalized citizens. And he gave a little speech, a little kumbaya, if you will. And this is what he said. Are you ready? Quote, as we marked 250 years, what do we see? We see a city of contradictions within our nation of contradictions. We see the wealthiest country in the history of the world, one where children go to sleep hungry, while the world's first trillionaire hungers for more. We see monopolies that dominate every industry and oligarchs who buy elections. We see masked agents terrorizing our streets, kids eating foods cooked by undocumented workers, and those who toil on factory floors and chisel into stone. And we see a nation that has allowed so much of the wealth to be held instead of the soft hands of a precious view. End of quote. Okay. This is clear Karl Marx ideology. Do you notice what he said? People are starving, but Elon Musk is a trillionaire. If you have money, we're coming to take it from you. He's also sitting in the biggest city in the country, New York, which is supposed to be the financial capital of the world, saying all this as a communist. This is Karl Marx's clear ideology. The workers are getting shafted, so we're going to rise up, we're going to kill the czar, kill him. His whole family was actually killed, and the people are going to have the power. But here's the bad thing. The people are not going to have the power. The people like him are going to be in control, and they're going to decide what you get. If you go to China and you see communism, the communists have the power of the party. And then Comrade Mandani in New York, the week of the 4th, he told people that due to the heat, they needed to raise their thermostats to 78 degrees for the benefit of all. I can assure you the thermostat in the mayor's mansion was not set at 78 degrees, okay? And by the way, on the week of the 4th of July, his wife, who hates America, left this country to go to a Muslim retreat, and she did not attend the 250th anniversary of our great country while she sits in the mayor's mansion of New York City, the most important city in the country. She left. She has verbalized that she hates this country. My goodness, where are we headed? The largest city in the country is being run by a socialist communist. Never, never, never could I believe this would happen. And the sad part is that reporters go out on the street and they ask people what they think about socialism and communism. And some of these people are so uneducated, they'll make comments like, what do you think about socialism? What do you think about communism? And people will make comments like, well, things are free. Seems like it's a good deal to me. There is nothing free in this world. All it is for those that are lazy, those that don't want to work, we're going to pay more for you to sit home. Those that have built something, they are coming to take your property. If you don't believe me, hang on. I am seriously considering moving to Argentina in about 15 years for good and never coming back. I have no reason to come back. My family's gone. I can travel to Middle East. I can travel to Europe. And I can live like a king in Argentina for cheap. And then the chairman of the board of socialism and communism in America, Senator Bernie Sanders, who vacations in Russia, by the way, who has written books and has 2 or 3 homes. He's not poor, okay? He advocates for the poor, but Senator Bernie Sanders is not poor, folks. He's a multimillionaire. He gave a speech this last week about the primaries of socialism in different states that have won over the election in November. This is a quote from Senator Bernie Sanders this last week. It may just be possible that this country is on the verge of the political revolution we have fought for such a long time. Now do I not have a crystal ball to tell you what will happen next? But last night and the last several months have given me hope and optimism, and I hope it does the same for you. We need a party that is prepared to take on the greed and ideology of the oligarchs who now control the economic media and political life of our nation. And we need to create an economy and a government that works for all of us, not just the few. We need a Democratic Party that opens its doors to new people, energy, and new ideas, and actually open border policy, end of quote. Now, Sanders just quoted Mao from China. That is his complete ideology. It is. The communist leader of China, the worst mass murderer in the world, Senator Sanders just quoted. If you make some money, and we need some more, he's prepared to come take it on. The ideology of the oligarchs. Stalin did it. Mao did it in China. Fidel Castro tried it in Cuba. Oh, and by the way, their power went out again for the 3rd time this week. If you're wealthy and they consider that you're an oligarch or that they're going to come take your stuff. They're going to come take your stuff because you have it, and they're going to redistribute it out to everybody. This is what communism is to the government. The government controls what the people do. So if you get wealthy with AI or the stock market or the real estate business or whatever you do to get wealthy, high tech, you're not entitled to that. Bernie Sanders is going to come take it away from you. Folks, I'm not being a conspiratorial person, but let me say something. There is a reason why we have the CIA. Where is the CIA in America? This is your job to protect the homeland from the people. These people want to change democracy and the vision of the greatest country on this world I have ever seen. And I am seriously concerned. I am not saying the sky is falling, but I'm telling you, the biggest cities in this country are becoming communism, socialist test tubes. Not for the people and the citizens of this country. And let me tell you something. We don't have oligarchs in America. We have what are called tycoons of industry. Tycoons of industry. John Rockefeller, Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, Vanderbilt family, the Mars family that makes the candy bars, the Walton family of Walmart, Jeff Bezos, Amazon, Zuckerberg, Facebook, Mark Cuban, Dallas Mavericks, and I can go on and on and on and on and on of all these people that have made it. They're not oligarchs. These are people that are tycoons that went out and built something and made our country better. Let me tell you something. There's nothing wrong with someone that has worked their tail off and made it. I'm glad for you. I am not jealous. I am not envious. I applaud your success. And here is why they provide. They provide jobs. They provide technology. They created a railroad. Henry Ford made the first car. All of the great inventions that came out of the Industrial Revolution, running water, air in your home. My goodness, we live in the best time to be on this earth than any generation before us. And if you listen to the media and the drive-by media and the people on the left, communism, we are living in a horrible country. Oh, my goodness. It is scary what is going on out there. And it's still coming. About communism. How did we get there? How did we get there? It's scary. In the same week that we just celebrated the 250th anniversary of this great democracy, and that lady on The View, Sunny, what's her name, Huston, I can't say her name, she said she was afraid to go into neighborhoods where she saw too many American flags. Are you kidding me? Most people that have an American flag on their house are the most patriotic people in this country. I can assure you we have a flag at my house, okay? 365 days a year, and even Christmas Day. The Democrats are angry. The Democratic Party is angry. And all they can do is blame Trump for their lot in life and hold him accountable for everything. My last thought on the national news of the week. You've just seen a country that generally is patriotic. Flies flags, hot dogs, barbecues, laying on the beach, sitting on the boat, drinking scotch, smoking a great cigar, playing golf with your family and friends. I was grateful to be around some of these people. I stayed up past midnight. I saw the greatest fireworks show on the 4th of July in D.C. I think they broke a Guinness World Record of over 500,000 fireworks. I wish I had been there in person to see it. If you listen to this show and you are Americans and you have the spirit, know that we will never give in to communism. We will never give in to these people on the left. And we are about to see in November, they may get some of these seats in New York, and they may get that seat up in Michigan. The guy that claims he's a physician and he doesn't have a medical degree, he needs to be real careful. He gave a news conference the other day, and they asked him about being a physician. He needs to be real careful. He may get charged with practicing medicine without a license because his language is getting really borderline there. You can't do that. These hot pockets up in New York where they've picked off these seats, in Michigan and up in Minnesota and out in Seattle, Washington, where that crazy mayor is, and what's going on in Virginia. These little test tubes, we're going to see how these things shake out, okay? But I don't believe in the heartland of America that communism is what's going to stand. I don't believe it. Now, people may call you, they may poll you, you may not answer the question, but you're not going to go for communism because it's never worked anywhere it's ever been tried. And when they come out and they ask these people on the street, what do you think about communism? Well, I don't know. It sounds pretty good. You get free stuff. Well, what do you know about communism? I don't know. Well, do you know anywhere it's ever worked and been successful? No, I really don't. Because it hasn't. Russia, China, Cuba, Venezuela. All these are places where there are actual oligarchs and people that come and take all of your stuff. That's not America. That's not American exceptionalism. That is not what this country was founded on. I'm sorry. I'm not on my soapbox. I'm just telling you. The news is unbelievable. Anyway, we're about to go to news and weather. Shelby Fence Company and Flat Fee Real Estate, our sponsors, will be back after the news and weather at the top of the hour. All right.
You're listening to The Legal Lowdown with your lawyer, Joe Ingram. If you need confidential legal help off air, reach out to Joe at joeingramlaw.com. Stay tuned for more. Joe will be right back after this break for news and weather. You're listening to The Legal Lowdown with Joe Ingram. Joe is a 20-year veteran of the Alabama courts specializing in criminal defense and family law. If you need a private legal consultation, email Joe at joeingramlaw.com. And now, welcome back to The Legal Lowdown with Joe Ingram.
All right, we're back for the second hour of The Legal Lowdown with Joe Ingram, your Alabama lawyer, on WERC 105.5 in Birmingham, WBHP up in Huntsville, and WRTR Tuscaloosa. If you're just getting in your car and you're listening to our show, thank you. You missed the first hour, and we're back. As always, we want to thank our sponsors, Flat Fee Real Estate of Birmingham. Flat Fee Real Estate of Birmingham. They are a full-service real estate brokerage. They can significantly reduce the amount you pay to sell your home. There are no high commission fees here. They have been established right here in Birmingham for over 10 years. They have 50 years of combined service. Their agents provide excellent service and performance, and they're with you every step of the way. So before you think about selling your home, you need to call Flat Fee Real Estate of Birmingham. Also, Shelby Fence Company. Shelby Fence Company for over 30 years of expert fence installation and repair across the greater Birmingham area. You can call them at 205-664-1551, 205-664-1551, or you can check them out, shelbyfencecompany.com, shelbyfencecompany.com, or you can watch their commercials during our news and weather break during our segments. As always, if you have a case, look us up on the web, joeingramlaw.com. joeingramlaw.com is all you need to know for your legal needs. You can call my office, 205-825-5297, 205-825-5297. Okay, first hour, we talked a little bit about some information for those that are going through a divorce, about rebuilding your self-respect. We talked a little bit about some Supreme Court decisions. We talked about some legal news and political news nationally about communism, celebrating our great country over the last week. Well, there's a story that's still going around, and it's still very important about the Social Security issue. Social Security, they have gotten some senators together, and their idea is to raise taxes for some of the workers. Imagine that, raise the taxes. A new plan to save Social Security would increase payroll taxes for millions of Americans. Here we go, folks. Democrat Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts and a Republican Senator, Bernie Moreno of Ohio, opted a New York Times story this week, calling on Congress to take up an action to fix Social Security that is going to go dry in 2032. The latest projections from the Social Security Board of Trustees show that the reserves of the Old Age and Survivors Insurance Trust Fund are set to run forth in the fourth quarter of 2032. After that point, Social Security would only be able to pay roughly 78% of promised benefits, slashing most people's checks by an average of $500 a month. So the two senators got together, and they said they have a solution. Yes, they have a solution for the shortfall, eliminating the Social Security payroll tax cap. In 2026, the payroll tax cap, or taxable minimum, is 184,500 workers. Workers and employers each pay 6.2% of wages up to that amount. So that's how they get 15.3%, the lawmaker said. The most paid into Social Security for one worker is $22,878, or 12.4% of $184,500. Even if individuals' salary far exceeds that amount. Now here we go. Quote, since the vast majority of Americans make less than that, most people are paying Social Security taxes on 100% of their earnings, while the highest earners are only paying their part. End of quote. The lawmakers wrote. Here we go again. If you make a little money, if you do a little better than the average person on the street, we're coming to take it from you. There are a lot of people in this country, okay, except for those in Congress that make $174,500 as a senator. If you get out and work for a living, there's a lot of us that make $185,000 a year. That's not a lot of money anymore. There's a lot of us that make $250,000 a year that get out and grind it. But because you make a little more, we're going to come take some more of your money to pay for everybody else. That's how this works. Yes, we're coming to take it from you. Imagine that. Tax the people that make the money. Here we go. Why should a middle-class nurse pay a larger share on her paycheck than a wealthy corporate lawyer? This is doubly unfair in an economy in which top earners' wages, overtime, have pulled far ahead of those of the average worker. Lifting the payroll cap would generate around $3 trillion for the program over the next 10 years, the lawmakers said. Social Security provides benefits to more than 70 million retired workers and people with disabilities. The bulk of the money for Social Security is funded through dedicated payroll taxes and taxes on benefits. Any shortfall, however, is covered by the trust funds. For the past 16 years, Social Security payments have exceeded its cash income, forcing it to dip into its reserves to pay benefits. By law, it can't pay out more benefits than it receives in revenue. So once the trust fund is gone, cuts will follow. Okay, so let's back up just a second. Let's talk about this, what you just heard. If you make more than $184,000 a year, we think you make too much money, so we're going to tax you to pay for those that claim they have some kind of disability and won't work. Now, before you start calling me and trashing me, yes, there are people with legitimate disabilities. And there are a lot of folks, and I hate to say this, there are a lot of personal injury lawyers out there on TV telling people you need to sign up for disability for those benefits you've earned, you're entitled to. We have a lot of people that are getting Social Security benefits that either A, have never paid into it, or B, really don't need it. What they need is just to get out and get a job, a job. That's what they need. Not mental health treatment, not sitting on the sofa of a social worker telling them their problems every day, living in their own demise. They need to just, you ever heard the saying, an idle mind is the devil's workshop? Just get out and get a job. Go to work. Get off my dime. I'm tired of paying for all you people. So if you make more than $184,000, you should pay more, is what you just heard. Isn't that lovely? Makes me want to get up and go to work Monday morning, knowing that they want to tax more money from me. But this Social Security issue, it's real, and we got to solve it. We do. And we've roughly got 6 years to solve the problem. So, yes, it's an important issue. Yes, I care about it. No, I don't want any person's benefits to be cut that has paid into the Social Security system. That's not what I'm saying. I want every retiree that has paid into it to get what they've earned. I really do. All I'm saying is I don't want to pay for people that either A, have not paid into the system, or B, are too lazy to go get a job, a job, to pay into the system, and are looking for me to fund you sitting at home while I'm out humping it every day for everybody. That is what I'm talking about. Okay. So we got to talk about some state legal news while I was away. They had the hearing on the Tuberville residency case down in Montgomery, and the judge issued an opinion this week and denied the petition of saying he's not a citizen of the state of Alabama. Go figure. She pretty much all but said that during the hearing. And so this case is going to go to the Alabama Supreme Court, and the Alabama Supreme Court is going to make the decision whether or not Tuberville will stay on the ballot for the Republican Party. My guess is he's going to stay. Just have a hunch there. All right, that covers that. Okay, if you've listened to this program, you know how much I was against the state legislature and the governor that wanted to change how the Alabama Public Service Commission is set up. Remember how they passed the legislation where she gets to appoint 4 people to the legislature? To the Public Service Commission. Well, they were so far ahead of us, I did not know what was coming. But I found out this week. Here is why. Here's why the state legislature and the governor of Alabama decided they needed to add more votes to the Public Service Commission. Are you ready for this story? The PSC seeks to control data centers with the balancing act between Alabama payers and Alabama Power, ratepayers and Alabama Power. Here we go. The data centers that I've been talking so much about because they're coming to Alabama. What you want to bet that they decide we need more data centers? A powerful agency may change how it oversees contracts between power companies and large customers like data centers. The Alabama Public Service Commission has used the same regulations since the 90s. Now, due to competitive elections, new committee members, and new legislation, the Commission is considering changes to make sure that data centers projects don't come at the expense of smaller consumers. Now, wait just a second. If you believe that, I've got some oceanfront property to sell you. Nope. It's backwards. The PSC is going to decide where and how many data centers there will be in Alabama. And they're going to make the votes. And the big companies that want to build the data centers, they're going to be lobbying the Public Service Commission to say, hey, we want to put this data center in Morgan County. We want to put this data center in Walker County. We want to put this data center in Lauderdale County. We want to put a data center in Coleman. We want to put a data center in Blount County, Tuscaloosa, Jefferson, St. Clair, Shelby County, Chilton County, all the way down, Montgomery, just, all the way down the state. More data centers. They're coming. And by the way, we just added 4 more votes, and we picked really smart people to make the decision about the data centers. The current process has worked over the years. Now, this is a quote, but these contracts are getting more and more complex, and we need more time to review them, according to Cynthia Lee Almond, who is the president of the Alabama Public Service Commission. That's a quote she made this last week on the news about the data centers. That's why they added 4 more people to the Alabama Public Service Commission, because it was about the data centers. How dumb I was. They were so far ahead of us on this. That's why they added 4 more people, because now they're going to make the decision where the data centers are going to be. Man, you have to stay way ahead of the news, or once it happens, you are so far behind the 8 ball, you don't even have a clue what just happened. I had no idea this is what they were thinking about. This is what they intended all along. This is why they added 4 more commissioners. It was about the data centers coming to Alabama. Man, they're sharp. Anyway, so it goes on. Under the current rules, the commission gets 10 days to review contracts between power companies and data centers. New regulations are supposed to ensure that local customers don't pay for data centers' power and infrastructure demands. Large data centers, are you ready, are under construction in Bessemer, Birmingham, Montgomery, and elsewhere. They're coming to a theater near you, data centers. In a statement, Alabama Power told AL.com this week that it respects the commission and its procedures for reviewing these agreements. Quote, Alabama Power requires large load customers, including data centers, to pay the full cost to serve their electric needs, so costs are not shifted to existing customers. Anthony Cook, end of quote, spokesman said. The recently enacted law reflects that the same customer protection standard. At the meeting, the commission began the process to update regulations and review data centers. This summer, members of the Public Service Commission will have a chance to comment on the proposal. The commission wants a new process in place by October 1. Daniel Tate, who is with Energy for Alabama, which advocates for lower consumer costs, said he hopes the process will add to the transparency to utility rates. Quote, Alabamans already pay some of the highest power bills in America, he said. He goes on, this is the commission's chance to make sure that data center boom doesn't land on the electric bill too, end of quote. A new state law adds seats to the commission, freezes electric rates through 2029, and requires an annual public review by the utilities regulated by the agency, including the Alabama Power. So they say this is a balancing act between the needs of the consumers and the needs of the companies. Allman goes on and says, we need to have a balancing for the Alabama Power to be well-functioning and make a profit and support itself. It's a good company. She also adds that there needs to be a balancing act between the public and the public's needs, and a big part of that is affordability. So there you go. They did it. It was a It was a reason why they wanted the 4 commissioners on the Public Service Commission. They didn't want it to be 3. They wanted it to be 7. And they wanted an executive director because they knew that all of these big companies wanted to come into our state to build these data centers. And it's not just our state. It's not just Alabama. It's everywhere. It's Texas. Every state is fighting the same issue about these data centers. My problem with the data centers are this. It takes a whole lot of power. It takes a lot of land, and it takes an enormous amount of water to cool a data center. That is my issue about the data centers and why I care about John Q. Public out there, and why I think the Public Service Commission might as well just be disbanded. They should have just done away with the Public Service Commission, like they said, and just call it a state agency. Because that's what they're going to do. They got the votes. So I was behind. I missed it. I really did miss it. Okay. So we covered that. For those of you that were out, got drunk, made some bad decisions over the holidays, maybe you got arrested for DUI, maybe you got charged with a controlled substance case, maybe you were attempting to elude from the police, better call Joe for your criminal case this week. I have been inundated with cases this last week. And yes, let me talk about a case I got this last week. I got the case of the week. I got the case on AL.com. The gentleman that's charged with 10 counts of sex crimes. Rape first, sodomy, rape second, all the sex cases. My client has already been burned at the stake on social media. I get it. People can get on social media and talk, and they're hiding behind a screen. I get it. I've been burned too on social media for doing my job. Except I saw some information in the stories this week. You know, prosecutors are held to a higher standard. They shouldn't try their stories in the press, their cases in the press. I saw some facts and I thought, I don't know anything about this. How would you know? You're just a newspaper person. So if you have a good case, try your case in the courtroom. Don't try your case in the press. My client is presumed innocent under the law, and the state has the burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Just a thought I have. No one ever expects to be in this position. Someday you may need a criminal lawyer too. Someday you might. Nobody plans for this. Do you know I never ask a client, did you do it? That's not my job. You know why? Because my client is entitled to a defense, and that is what the person will receive in a courtroom. And I never ask them, did you do it? Because it might change how I represent that person. If you have a moral compass, my job is to protect your constitutional rights and see where the facts and the law and the evidence lead. Yes, I have been crucified on social media this week too, but I don't care. I'm doing my job. Someday you may have a loved one that's in the same position, and the shoe will be on the other foot. So that's my thoughts on criminal cases over the holidays, because crime goes up during the holidays. Okay, we're going to go to break, and we'll be back for the final segment of the Legal Lowdown. We'll be back right after the news and with it.
You're listening to the Legal Lowdown with your lawyer, Joe Ingram. If you need confidential legal help off air, reach out to Joe at joeingramlaw.com. Stay tuned for more. Joe will be right back after this break for news and weather. You're listening to the Legal Lowdown with Joe Ingram. Joe is a 20-year veteran of the Alabama courts specializing in criminal defense and family law. If you need a private legal consultation, email Joe at joeingramlaw.com. And now, welcome back to the Legal Lowdown with Joe Ingram.
All right, we're back for the final segment of the Legal Lowdown with Joe Ingram, your Alabama lawyer on WERC 105.5 in Birmingham, WBHP up in Huntsville, and WRTR in Tuscaloosa. This is the final segment of the show. It's gone fast. We've talked about a lot today. We've talked about some Supreme Court decisions that were good and bad. We've talked about communism that's coming to America. We've talked about Alabama Public Service Commission. We've talked about the Social Security issue, how they just want to keep taxing the rich, taking more of our money to pay for those that won't work. And right before break, we were talking about criminal law. Yes, I got the big criminal law case of the week, if you read AL.com. Secondarily, I have a case up in a county. Client's charged with manslaughter. And I've had this case for 3 years. And God willing, hopefully I'm going to get to try this case in August because I've had it for 3 years and I'm ready to bring it in to a conclusion. First of all, let me say this. If you have a great case, and we do, we have a crime scene reconstruction expert who is brilliant, who is a former NASA engineer, okay? NASA engineer. This person has done a fabulous job recreating the crime scene. I mean, he has done a unbelievable job in what he does. He says, Joe, this is the actual mark on the road where the bicyclist was hit. He wasn't off my client didn't leave the road. My client didn't cover the white line. This is the mark on the road. So if you have good facts, you have good evidence, you have good witnesses, my client is entitled to a trial by jury of his peers and then let fate decide if he's guilty or innocent of manslaughter. And that is what the American judicial system is about. Yes, I did get on my little soapbox about the Charlie Kirk case. It's only because you see these cases in the press that get treated so much differently than real cases out in the real world every day. I have never seen a criminal case that took, I think we're going on almost 8-9 months from the time it happened to a preliminary hearing that lasts a week. You don't have to put that much evidence on. It's just probable cause. That's all you got to do. And the fact that the defense lawyers have already billed the state of Utah $349,000. I got news for you. What do you think their goal in this is? Yes, they're there to defend their client, but they're also there to work this case maybe for another 2 years and make $2 million. That's all they need. If I knew I could work one case and make $2 million, don't you think I'd work that case as long as I could? Ride that horse? Not trying to be insensitive about it. I'm just stating facts of how the system works a little bit. So if you've gone out there and made some bad decisions over the last couple of weeks, give us a call. We've been inundated. Something else I want to talk about, and we talked a little bit about this earlier about gray divorces. Divorce cases this year that we have done, I have done more of what I call gray divorces than I've ever done in my life. in my career. These are people over 65. These are people that have raised their kids and they've grown apart. We've even done some between 80 and 90 years of age. And I touched on this earlier. I asked this lady, I said, what are the reasons you want to do this? And she said, I had no choice. The spouse was either going to burn the house down with me in it. I was afraid for my safety. It was sad. Not only was she getting a divorce, the spouse was going to be committed because they had dementia. That was a sad case. Because they're a danger to themselves and they're a danger to the community at large. I had another case recently. Sometimes I had somebody recently in their 80s. I said, why would you get a divorce now? You're 80 years of age. Not being insensitive, but time short. And they said, whatever time I've got left on this earth, I want peace, joy, harmony, travel. I want peace in my life. And I get it. Nobody wants to be unhappy every day. But it's hard to do those type of marriages because people have been together so long. And you wonder if they get a divorce, if they're going to be better off when they're living on their own. I worry about them being able to take care of themselves. So we take those divorce cases with a lot of sensitivity, and we spend more time with them than the average person that comes in our office. So I even had somebody that called me this last week that listens to the show. This person was in their 70s, and person said, hey, the reason I was listening to your show is that you talked a little bit about David Goggins, and they do martial arts training and things like that. And the person said, my spouse has been telling me for 7 months they want a divorce, so here I am on your doorstep. And I spent almost 3 hours with this person in an interview this week, and the person was great person to represent. I said, do you really want to do this? You're in your 70s. Well, my spouse isn't happy. They've been telling me for 7 months, so here I am. Well, we talked about it. Person went home that night, talked to their spouse, called me the next day, said, we made an agreement. Would you draft the documents? We'll come in and sign them next week. Those are sad. Because in those divorce cases, here's what happens. Somebody's going to have to leave the house. You're either going to have to pay one or the other spouse off to leave, and then somebody else has got to go find somewhere else to live. And if you buy out the other spouse, then you've got to refinance your house, and the interest rates are higher. We're at like 6.5%. And so you got that kind of debt in your 80s, unless you got the kind of money to pay them off. Now, some people do, and some people don't. And that's what's sad, is whether the people have the money to pay off their spouse in those kind of divorce cases. Those are tough. Those are tough cases to handle. And then if they have really good assets like 401k plans or pensions and things of that nature, you got to decide how you're going to cut up the pie. Who gets what? This person is going to have to give one person 40% of their 401k plan in their 80s. Nobody knows how long they're going to live. You may live 25 more years. I've seen some statistics here in the last week by a physician that says if we live another 5 years due to all the advances in the health industry, you got a better chance than not to live to be 105. our life expectancy is going up exponentially because of all the advances that we've had that our our prior generations didn't have. So it's going to take more money to keep you alive for that period of time. You don't want your money to run out before you do. So those are big concerns. Nobody knows. Nobody plans for that. Nobody plans for that. And this divorce that I did for this lady, her husband was in his 90s. I'm thinking, I said, well, why don't you just hang on? He I'm not trying to be cruel, but if you're in your 90s, you look at the life expectancy tables, they're every day he gets up is one less day he's got. He may not live another year. She said, I just can't take the risk. I may die. I don't want to die. That's tough. That's a tough decision to make. Do you leave your spouse that you've been with for over almost 50 years at the end of their life? That's a tough call to make. Those are tough interviews to have. Thus, that is the nature of our work. Anyway, something to think about there. Something to think about. As always, we don't get to talk about this a lot, but we got a few minutes, so I do want to talk about it. If you have a plaintiff case, yes, we take those as well. Picked up 2 plaintiff cases this last week. They were automobile injuries. If you're injured in an automobile accident, it is really important if you are able to get out, take pictures of the cars, both your car and the other car. If you can get names and phone numbers of witnesses, pull out your phone, just take a snapshot of pictures of tags, car numbers. Any information you can get will help you down the line. If you need to go get medical treatment, go to the hospital that day. Go get treatment. Go get checked out. See if you're okay. Be careful what you say when you go to the doctor. Don't say, I was just injured in a car wreck, and I'm here to see how bad I'm injured so I can make that other person pay. The medical professional is going to write down every word you say, okay? They're going to write down every word you say. Yes, they do that. They're going to take down every word that you say. So don't go in there and say, I'm looking for a boatload of money. If you have to get medical treatment, go get the medical treatment that the physician tells you need. If you need to get injections, if you need to go to PT, take time off work and do that. You can be compensated for taking time off to go to PT. You can be compensated for going to the physician. Whatever the doctor tells you need, do the treatment that you need. When you are fully rehabilitated or you've reached the point of maximum medical improvement, that is when we'll try to settle your case. And if we can't settle your case, then we'll set the case for trial and we'll let a jury decide what the value of your case is worth if you're in an automobile accident, okay? For those of you that are hurt on the job, worker comp injuries, now those are not jury trials. Those are bench trials, all right? Do not be afraid to file a claim if you're hurt on the job. Somebody called me a couple of weeks ago. Joe, I got hurt on the job. Did you file a claim? No, I didn't tell them yet. Why? Well, I was always told that if you file a workers' comp claim, they'll fire you. Well, they can, but it's not really in their best interest to try to do that because then they got to justify why they fired you. So if you're hurt, you need to tell your employer, you need to file a claim, and then you need to go to the doctor and get checked out for your back because you only have one back. You only have one neck. You can't fix those. So if you get hurt on the job, file a workers' comp claim. You're entitled to be compensated if you're hurt on the job. And the thing about back and neck injuries, those fall outside of what we call scheduled member injuries. Most parts of your body have a value. You get a finger cut off or you get a hand cut off. Those have a value. Non-scheduled members are your neck, your back, your spine. Those are non-scheduled members under the workers' comp law if you get hurt on the job and you need to file a claim for an injury. And yes, if they fire you for filing a workers' comp claim, you can sue them for retaliatory discharge. And I talk about the famous case I had of the person that was a veteran that worked in a bar and broke their foot moving a what's called a keg of beer. They were changing out the kegs, and they broke their foot, and they fired them. We sued them for retaliatory discharge. We got more money for the retaliatory discharge case than we did for the actual worker comp injury case. And it was clear cut. The only reason they fired them is because they had to go to the doctor that day because they broke their foot. So if you get hurt on the job, please take care of yourself. You only have one body. Your employer does not care that much about you, and they're supposed to have workers' comp insurance if they have so many employees under federal law. Okay? So we got to talk about automobile injuries. We got to talk about worker comp cases. Sometimes we don't get to talk about those as much. Had a very interesting case this week. People had property, homes in Alabama. One spouse lives here, child lives here. One spouse lives in another state because they work out of state. And the question became, well, Joe, should I get divorced in the other state or should I get divorced in Alabama? I said, well, it depends. It depends on if the custodial parent's here with the child. More often than not, then Alabama's going to have custody of that divorce case. And that turned out to be the case. Sometimes when people have marriages in Alabama and they work out of state for travel purposes, it's hard to decide where the case should be litigated for a divorce. So if you're in one of those kind of situations, you need to seek a divorce lawyer to give you some good information of where your case should be litigated. And then again, you may try to decide to not have your case litigated in Alabama if the state where you're going to get a divorce might be a better state for you if you're looking at paying alimony or having to give away some of your assets or your 401k plan. I understood the situation, and it was a real important question, but more often than not, they were better off to let Alabama have jurisdiction over their divorce case. Okay, that covers that. Before we get away today, I want to talk about my final thought because somebody that came in the other day made a comment about it. Final thought. You have to lose your fear of failure. Failure is part of the process. People who never fail never try. You have to fail. You got to get it wrong to get it right. You learn nothing from winning. You only learn from your failures. If you're not out there failing, you're not trying. I fail a lot, and it's okay to fail. You only got to be right once. Remember Benjamin Franklin? He was wrong a lot of times. He only had to be right one time. It's okay to fail. Failure happens. Happened to Jeff Bezos. Happened to Elon Musk, Tesla, SpaceX. But you learn from your failures. You're going to learn more from your failures than your wins every time. If you're afraid to try and you're afraid to fail, then you're afraid to succeed. That's a fact. If you're afraid to put your toe in the water and get wet, then you can't get in the water. You got to take a chance. You got to take a risk, whether it's that business, whether it's that relationship, whatever it is that you want to go change and do in your life. You can't be afraid to take a risk and fail because that's the only way you're going to know if you're going to make it or not, is to take a risk. It's just my thoughts. Anyway, we've had a great show this week. I've really enjoyed being back. It was great to have some downtime. Do not let the naysayers tell you this is not the greatest country in the world. We are already in July, and school will be starting here before you know it in a couple of weeks. I think the kids start back about the second week of August, and then before you know it, we'll be into football season, and it'll be fall, and then before you know it, we'll be into the holidays. It comes faster than you realize. And yes, we have the elections in November, and we will get to see if communism overturns democracy in America. Now, they're going to win some seats that we've talked about. They're going to win New York. They're going to win the seat up in Michigan. They may win some up in Minnesota. There are pockets where some of these communist socialist seats are going to win. Okay? It's a given. But by and large, we're going to see if the American people really believe in communism or if they really believe in the American dream. And I really believe that most people come here for the American dream. No one's ever come here for communism. Think about that. Have you ever heard anybody say, I'm coming to America for communism? No, they're coming here because they want a better life. They want the American dream, which is freedom. Freedom to say whatever you say. Freedom to practice whatever religion you want. The opportunity to work as hard as you want to make as much money as you want to make. Except the fact that they want to take our money for Social Security and all the people that won't get out and make a job for themselves. Nobody has ever come to America saying, I want to go to America. They have communism there. That's not why you come here. Oh, and by the way, do you think that the Charlie Kirk killer, Tyler Robinson, do you think he would have that kind of trial in Russia or Cuba or China? No. Or even Iraq. They just kill him. We have the greatest judicial system in the country, in the world. Honest to goodness, whether you're a citizen or non-citizen, whether you're charged in state court or federal court, if you can't pay for a lawyer, the government's going to give you a lawyer if you're charged with a felony, and you're entitled to be judged by 12 citizens of that community at large. Now, whether you like it or not, it's the greatest system. It's the fairest system on the planet. It truly is. So go try to tell me that you get that in a communist country. You won't get that. And that's what this program's all about. Educating you both on law and politics. There you go. Before we get out of here, I want to thank Flat Fee Real Estate for being a sponsor of our show. Flat Fee Real Estate. They don't have high commission fees. They have over 50 years of combined experience. They've been in business for over 10 years. They are the best. They are excellent at customer service. They're with you every step of the way when you buy and sell a home. Flat Fee Real Estate of Birmingham. Shelby Fence Company. Shelby Fence Company's been in business for over 30 years. They are the best at building fences in the Birmingham metro area. If you need a fence, you need to call Shelby Fence Company, and more often than not, you will talk to the owner of Shelby Fence, Tim. Tim is a great guy. You can call Tim at 205-664-1551, 205-664-1551, or you can look them up, ShelbyFenceCompany.com, ShelbyFenceCompany.com on the web. As always, if you need a lawyer, look us up, JoeIngramLaw.com. JoeIngramLaw.com is all you need to know for legal representation in Alabama. Joe Ingram Law. If you need us, give us a call, 205-825-5297, 205-825-5297. Folks, we're about to get out of here. We got some guests that we're lining up for the next few weeks. and we'll announce those coming up. We always appreciate you listening to our show. It's fun. I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be back at work. I came straight from vacation and went to the office Sunday, and yes, I worked to midnight Sunday night. And I've been in the courtroom almost every day this week. So we hope you have a fabulous week. We thank you for listening to the show, and we'll talk to you next week. Gotta go. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Legal Lowdown with your lawyer, Joe Ingram of Joe Ingram Law. Don't forget to follow Joe's Legal Lowdown podcast on iHeart. If you need a private legal consultation, reach out to Joe on his website, joeingramlaw.com. Tune in again next Saturday for the Legal Lowdown with Joe Ingram. No representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by any other lawyer.